My name is Alana and this is my presentation for Assessment 1B. Today I am looking at Stage 2 Material World and my activity looks at changes of state. The outcomes that I am looking at are the following. Describes how adding and removing heat causes a change of state and selects and uses materials, tools and equipment to develop a solution for a need or opportunity. The inquiry question that I am basing my activity off is, how do materials change when heated and cooled? I'm going to start off by briefly looking at my unit of work. In the Engage section, students will start off by coming into the classroom and going to different stations around the room that have the following materials at the desks. Container of ice cubes, melted chocolate, a melted crayon, solid chocolate, a melted candle, a frozen Zupa Duper, and a melted Zupa Duper. Students are to discuss how the objects got to the state they are in. For example, it could have been put in the freezer, could have been put out in the sun, or it could have been put in the microwave. This activity intends for students to use their prior knowledge to help them inform their understanding. For the Explore section, students will create ice cream by cooling down a liquid to create a solid. They will then plan a fair test that looks at how many ice cubes are needed to cool down a liquid to make it a solid the quickest. In the Explain section, the teacher will discuss the science behind how heating and cooling materials can change their states of matter. There is a video link that can be used to support it. Students will then create a presentation in groups that expresses their understanding of cooling and heating up materials, making reference to the ice cream activity. In the Elaborate section, students are given a design task that they'll have to plan and design as a group that looks at ways to melt butter without using a microwave. And finally, in the Evaluate stage, students will demonstrate their design task to the class, explaining why they chose to do it and the science that underpins it. For my hands-on activity today, I will be looking at the Explore stage where students will make ice cream. The hands-on activity of making ice cream focuses on the syllabus dot point of describe how adding or removing heat causes a change of state. By the end of this activity, I intend for students to understand how materials can change when cooled and how materials can change from a liquid to a solid. So for the hands-on activity, I'll be making ice cream in a bag. This activity shows that by cooling down the milk, which is a liquid, we can turn it into a solid, which is the ice cream. The materials that we'll need are a large Ziploc bag, a small Ziploc bag, 6 tablespoons of salt, half a cup of flavoured milk, ice, and gloves or a tea towel. To make the ice cream, I start off with a small Ziploc bag and I open it up. I grab the half a cup of chocolate milk and I pour it into the bag. I then seal it up so it doesn't leak. I put it to the side and then I grab the larger Ziploc bag. I open it up and then I get my bowl of ice and I pour it in. I then get the 6 tablespoons of salt and I place it inside. Once I've done this, I grab the smaller Ziploc bag and I place it inside the bag with the ice. I then seal this up. Now I grab the tea towel, or if you have gloves, you can wear the gloves, and I hold the bag of ice. I then start gently shaking it and squeezing the bag. I'll do this for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes of gently shaking the bag, I check to see if the ice cream has formed. I open the bag and I get the smaller Ziploc bag out to see inside. The ice cream has formed. So now I get a spoon and a small bowl and I scoop out the ice cream. And here I have finished ice cream. Questions that I would ask students after they have made the ice cream that would promote higher order thinking with the students would be the following. What would happen if I didn't gently shake the bag of milk with the bag of ice? With this question, some students may think that there wouldn't be a change, but I would hope this question would get some students thinking about the idea that the bag of milk needs to be moving around with the bag of ice in order to drop its temperature. What would happen if I heated the ice cream? At this point in the unit, we would not have looked at the changes heat can make, but I would hope students would be able to bring in their prior knowledge and state that heat would just melt the ice cream back down into its original form of the milk. Lastly, what do you think would happen if I substituted water with the milk? Hopefully students would be able to identify the concept that without the milk, ice cream wouldn't form. Rather, using water would just chill the water down more until it freezes into ice itself. After students answer those questions, I would ask them, what makes you think that? This question is so important as it gets the students to then explain further their answer and understanding, which promotes higher order thinking. Looking at the purpose of this activity, I chose this activity to go into the Explore section of the 5E's framework, as the activity allows students to activate their prior knowledge about changes of state before undertaking the explicit teaching and learning. Making ice cream engages students into the topic because it is a fun, hands-on learning experience that students may not have tried before. Students would be a lot more engaged in learning about the content in this manner where they get to make ice cream, rather than just learning about it through a written lesson. And it also allows opportunities to engage with materials to explore new ideas in a fun way. This hands-on activity is a simple activity that students can then go home and do at home to show their parents their learning and understanding. The exploration section allows prior knowledge to be challenged and new ideas to be created. So this activity places emphasis on students knowing what ice cream is. It's a yummy frozen food that we all love. But it then gets them thinking about the idea that ice cream starts off as a liquid that is then cooled down to create a solid. This may also get students thinking about a number of other foods they enjoy and how they are created, which again brings in their wider knowledge. The 5E's of inquiry-based learning allow students to deepen their thinking and understanding of content through their own exploration of a concept. So it engages students' thinking, then allows for discovery through exploration and factual learning to deepen students' understanding of content matter. For the ice cream activity, students weren't just learning about the process of making ice cream, they were learning about how we cooled down the chocolate milk, which was the liquid, with ice to then turn it into a solid, which was the ice cream. It also allowed students to experience the learning for themselves, rather than it just being explained to by the teacher. When people learn new information, they tend to do it through exploration. Therefore, instead of me as the teacher doing this activity as a demonstration, all of the students would be completing the activity so that they would have the opportunity to develop their own understanding through the hands-on activity. This is then supported by the next point. The hands-on minds-on approach allows students to develop their own understanding. This is so important as students will take more away from this experience than they would just looking at a diagram of how ice cream is made and looking at the changes of state that occur. It also gives students the opportunity to experience the concepts and explore their own ideas before being taught the explicit content, which allows teachers to then pick up on misconceptions and clarify them in further teaching. The 5E's approach also allows students to connect to their personal thinking. Student safety is very important throughout all activities. So students should be wearing enclosed shoes when completing this activity. All loose hair should be tied back, and students should be wearing gloves or using a tea towel to hold the Ziploc bag of ice to avoid their fingers getting cold. The activity should be conducted over a bucket or a sink because when the ice melts, it can cause water spillages on the floor, and we don't want any students slipping. If a spillage does occur, the teacher should clean it up immediately. The water and ice should be discarded safely in a sink. Lastly, students shouldn't eat the ice cream. Because we added salt to the ice, sometimes when we are shaking the bags to create the ice cream, the Ziploc bag may form a hole, which then allows the salty water into the mix, so the ice cream doesn't taste very nice. Here is my reference list. Thank you for listening.